And a lot of people, 99% of people, they don't see this path all the way through and they get stuck somewhere and ultimately they just give up. If you had just dug 3 feet the other way, you would have actually found this enormous abundance of gold. And so this is the key of personal self-development. What's up, guys? My name is Kevin Reardon, and in this video, I want to talk to you about the elusive concept of self-development and growth. So this is something that I think is critical to getting everything that you've ever wanted and desired in your life. And over the years, I've recreated numerous times and have begun to understand what it takes to actually self-develop. And so if you're new to this channel, I'm Kevin Reardon. I was just a normal dude, worked at a car wash after I graduated undergrad for 1.5 years as I was still training as an athlete. And then I worked my way into law school and then into Wall Street, where I was a finance attorney for a few years with one of the top law firms. And then I recreated myself and I started back at zero in hotels. I went and bought a motel 8 years ago, had no idea what I was doing. I just sold that motel for several $1 million in profit and have gone on to develop other hotels for myself and for other people. And so in this video, I just want to take all the lessons that I've learned over the last few decades, really share the frameworks that have allowed me to grow at every stage. And today I'm going to share with you 3 different frameworks that I think are just fundamental in understanding personal growth and how your journey might look, and what are the obstacles and tools that you're going to encounter and use along the way. So this is going to be fairly basic but fundamental, and then in future videos I'll build off of very detailed tools and tactics and how you can actually change each one of these areas within your life. But just to have a fundamental understanding of how you change, well, the first graph that I'm going to show you is a graph that I made that is just shows 2 things. One, it shows growth, and then on the x-axis it shows time. And so it's very simple. You want to grow over time. And what a lot of people think is that you're going to grow in a relatively 45-degree angle, straight trajectory up when you go into developing yourself. And that is generally just not true. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. And certainly I found myself at times wanting to be better, wanting to develop, but going into a trough. And so the question is where are those dips, and then how do you sustain yourself through, and what do you need to know to get yourself through those? The most important thing is to fundamentally want and have a desire to change. No one can instill that into you. That you have to make a decision yourself, that I have a vision for my life. I want to be more. I want to do more. I want to have larger, more meaningful impact in my life and others in this world. And once you make that internal decision, now you're set off onto a path of trying to figure out how to put that vision and make that vision into a reality. And a lot of people, 99% of people, they don't see this path all the way through and they get stuck somewhere and ultimately they just give up. And if you ever read one of my favorite books, Think and Grow Rich, which I have right here by Napoleon Hill, I highly recommend. This is one of the foundational books for self-development, business leadership. He has this concept of 3 feet from gold, and he tells a story about people going to mine gold in the gold rush. And this father and son have gold in the ground and they get some of it, so they get reap some of the rewards, and they continue digging, but they don't find anything. And so they stop and they sell the plot of land to a local guy because they believe that there's no more gold left. Then Napoleon tells a story about how the local gentleman hires an expert and realizes, oh, if you had just dug 3 feet the other way, you would have actually found this enormous abundance of gold. I take 2 things away from that. One is sometimes you just need to keep going. And even if you think that you've exhausted everything that you can do, there's something that's waiting for you. And you just have to find the information, the person, to get to what you want. And sometimes it just takes work on yourself, your beliefs, the manifestations of bringing things into you and attracting. And in this story, if that gentleman that sold the plot of land had maybe hired an expert to do a survey of where gold might be found, he would have found the answer of literally 3 feet behind you. You would have found all of the gold that you wanted, and that would have supported you and your family for the rest of your lives. And so this is really foundational concept of just staying with it and developing And self-development is something that you're constantly doing. You never get to an end point, right? It's never ending, but you're just improving yourself and leveling yourself up to get everything that you ever wanted. When I look at this graph right here of time and growth, a lot of people think that it's going to look generally 45 degrees, right? You're just over time, you're going to have more growth. That's true, but when you're really having breakthroughs and you're going deep down, you are going to get exponential growth over time when you can persist through some of the deepest rooted traumas and things that you have within inside yourselves. And I think this is all why a lot of people in their 30s, 40s go through these kind of midlife crises, is because they've had so many things put into them over time, so many ideas, so many beliefs, so many quote unquote traumas, except those traumas aren't things that have happened to you. They're things that happen for you and were rooted into you and that you have to dig back out and overcome. And we don't realize this, but a lot of this is not even our own choosing. Research shows that, from the time you're born up into maybe 7, 8 years old, 90% of your beliefs, of your internal programming is all put into you. You are just stuck with that until you reach a point where it limits you in what you want to get done into your life, right? And so that's when we get to our 30s or maybe 40s and realize that we have fundamentally some flaws and some limiting beliefs that we've never worked through and that are actually holding us back from doing what we've always wanted to do, from becoming the person that we believe we were meant to become in this world. And so on this self-development journey, when you have that fundamental core desire to do something, a vision for your life and what you want to be, we're going to call that the goal. And so on this graph, you have at the top of this graph the point of where you want to be over time, but then you have where you are right now, and you might be down here, and then over time you want to get to up here. Very simple. But the question is, well, what does self-development journey look like? And a lot of the times it looks a lot different than we think it does. And so just fundamentally, I want you to understand, if you're on this journey or gonna go on this journey for yourself, here's what it actually looks like. It actually looks like you get an immediate bump once you start discovering resources, you get motivation, you start going up, and then you hit some headwinds, and then you dip down a little bit, and then you find some more motivation, you find some more answers and clarity, and you have another nice big bump, and maybe now you're getting really busy, but then you might start to feel overwhelmed, and it might trigger some limiting beliefs and some things that you haven't never worked through that are really deep inside of you. And then you take a big turn. And so on my graph here, you kind of go up, then you dip, then you come back up, you take a big dive back down to basically where you started. And now you've been working for maybe a matter of months on yourself and trying to break through, right? Everyone wants to have this quote unquote breakthrough. But see, that's where the magic happens in growth, is when you get to that valley of self-development, is you hit this point where you want to give up. And it's where most people give up. And they start believing the core limiting beliefs that they have within inside themselves, which is maybe I'm not enough, or I have this chronic illness, I have all of these problems, I have ADHD, whatever it is, and it doesn't allow you to break through to the next level. And a lot of people, unfortunately, will stop there and they'll say, you know what, this just is how it is. I gave it a good go, but this is just who I am. When in reality, what you're doing is you're actually confronting the fundamental beliefs and programs that have been put into you from when you were a child. And it's no person's, no fault of their own, right? Our parents had things they had to work through, and our parents' parents, and all of these traits and all of these behaviors, beliefs, genetics are all passed down and intertwined over decades and generations. And so it's no one's fault. Tony Robbins says, you can hate someone for making you the way that you are, but look at all the good that it can provide you and all the lessons that it can teach you, and you better love them for that too. This tension and push and pull of, some things mess you up, but they can also be the things that set you free and give you and teach you lessons that make you stronger going forward. And so you get to this point in self-development that you enter this trough of really having to confront the deep down core fundamental programming within inside of you. And that's where it gets tough. And that's where people, quote unquote, may hit bottom. This is where you can have your breakthrough, is when you hit that bottom and you don't know when that's going to come or where that is, if you continue to push through and search for answers, the universe has a way of guiding you to the answers. And this is where we get into the spiritual realm, which we won't go too far into here, but this is where the universe will start providing you clues and answers and support. And over time, you start taking the trajectory and you take off when you're able to get the tools, when you're able to get the answers and understand the fundamentals of self-development. It'll set you off. And then all of a sudden you take off and you're headed towards the person that you want to become. But remember, you never actually get to the person that you want to become. It's just a vision, it's an ideal. But the closer that you get, you realize that that is what the journey is, and you're comfortable in the journey instead of the end result. You're comfortable in the person that you've become instead of thinking that you have to have X amount of money or have to have some sort of relationship, right? Or some amount of Instagram followers. And so that's the fundamental of kind of what personal development looks like. And when we say going from person you are now to the person that you want to become, I use a simple matrix of 4 squares to understand the areas of your life and where you are now, and then developing each one of those and becoming the person that you want to become, right? And I by no means am perfect in any of these areas. These are things that I'm constantly working on and leveling up and getting better and better and finding new information, finding new environments to put myself in to get better in each of these areas. And so you can look at a matrix of these 4 squares to understand the things that you want to level up in your life. So number 1 is health. Number 2 is wealth, money. Number 3 is relationships. And number 4 is spiritual. Spiritual can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. It can mean the God that you pray to. It could just be spirit in the universe. But understanding that we live in this crazy world and universe, and how do you explain all of the synchronicities, and how do you explain the creation of all that's around us? You can go into a deep hole just in that. And obviously religion has been around for forever, and there's many holes that you can go down there. But these are the 4 areas that when I say I want to know, I want to measure who I am, think about who I am right now in those 4 areas. And then I want to look at, am I improving? How do I improve? How do I get the information, the tools and tactics? How do I break through in each one of those areas to then elevate to the person that I want to become? And now finally, the third framework that I've found incredibly helpful in self-development and getting to who you want to become is understanding the cyberkinetic loop of how it works, going from your everyday experiences, how that manifests into your actual reality and how you behave as a human being, and how that cycle repeats and repeats. And so I kind of listed it out here in a chain reaction instead of a circle, but I would think of it as a circle. And then once you get to the end of the chain reaction, you just have a self-reinforcing loop that comes back up. And here's what this looks like. So the way that I map it out is, first you have an experience in your life. Whatever that experience is, it manifests as, this Newtonian physical reality that you have, right? You have your 5 senses that were given to you in order to experience the world, and whatever is coming in for you, whatever the experiences are that you're having, they are what they are, right? And it's so you have an experience, something is happening, which triggers a belief, a core underlying belief that you have programmed inside of you. And these are subconscious, right? Beliefs are subconscious, and it's not necessarily something that you're thinking about until you're trying to overcome and think about, well, what are my limiting beliefs? But you have these beliefs that are programmed into you. And then the belief triggers a thought. So this underlying programming within you that's completely subconscious then creates a consciousness and creates a thought. It creates a chemical reaction that leads to an emotion. And then that emotion leads to some type of internal reaction within you. Right? It triggers your nervous system and it triggers your body. You might become, if you're angry, you might become red and flushed. And so it triggers this internal reaction. Your heart rate might be elevated in a stressful situation, right? Which takes you into an external action. All of these chain reactions going from just a basic belief and experience has now triggered all these instantaneous reactions that happen in just a moment, right? And you get to your external action, what you actually do because of all these chain reactions, which leads to a result. What you do becomes a result. And so whatever that result is creates your reality and reinforces your experience. And so you're set into this loop. And so when we talk about personal development, we talk about the concept of breaking the cycle, breaking the addiction of everyday life. What I've come to realize is that that is where all the work is. How you break the cycle of the addiction of everyday life. We become programmed in our everyday daily activities to do the same things over and over and over again. In fact, a lot of times you go completely subconscious. Like the other day, I was driving for 20 minutes and I was coming back home and not even thinking about the journey because I'm just on autopilot. Autopilot, I go to my old home instead of my new home. Why do I do that? Because we've programmed ourselves these subconscious actions that we take that we're just in this looping cycle, and we live the same day over and over and over again. And so if you want to go through development and developing these areas, and you want to actually grow from point A to point B, then you have to break the cycle. You have to break this addiction of habit, and whatever the addictions are, it doesn't necessarily have to be alcohol or drugs. The addictions of the decisions that you make in your life. And so personal development becomes, how can I change these decisions? How can I break this chain reaction and these cycles so that I create a new belief, which will give me a new thought, which will give me a new emotion, which will spur new reactions in my body and outside and new actions. See, then once you've gone through that chain and you've made a new action, now you've created a new loop that's going to create a new experience. And enough new actions creates an entirely new experience. And a new experience is your higher self, is your better, more improved self. And so this is the key of personal self-development. And this is what I've realized doing this for a long time, is how you get from recreating yourself and continue to level up. I was just raised in a middle class household. I went to a state undergrad. I came home, I worked at a car wash for 2 years, but I knew I wanted to get to the peak industry of finance because I wanted as much as I could for myself. I saw these guys on Wall Street, they're making a lot of money. So I worked on myself for 3 years to be able to get into one of the best law schools and then to work at one of the top law firms. And then I had that experience at that law firm, and I realized that it wasn't everything that I thought it was, and that my reality in practice was not what I had envisioned or was told by society when I got to practicing at a great law firm. And it taught me many things, and I worked with some of the smartest, hardest working people. But that also led me into a journey of starting back at zero after spending 9 years in the law realm in my 20s and recreating now as an entrepreneur and building a hotel company, employing lots of people and having thousands and thousands of guests at our hotels. And then also helping other people create financial freedom and create the lives of their dreams, buying their hotels. And so being able to do this over time, and every time that I recreate, I'm going through recreation right now, every time I go through this, I see these cycles, and then I get more and more clear, and it becomes a little bit easier each time as we go to break these cycles, to break the addictions, and to create the person that we want to become. So I hope this was helpful. Get out there, see what you're doing unconsciously, start thinking about, and first step is becoming more aware of who you are right now and having a vision for who you want to be. And then from there, you can take the tools and resources to make the vision and the person of your reality come to life. I'm Kevin Reardon, and I'll see you next video.